Welcome back to another episode of the Jackie Service Show. This one's going to be fun. This is a new friend that has felt like a soul brother since the minute I met him and have spent some quality time with him a few months ago in Boise, Idaho. And I'm so excited
of all places.
Now,
that's not a phrase people have probably heard recently. I spent some quality time with this guy in Boise, Idaho.
It was my first time. I didn't even know how to say Boise. I was corrected on the airplane. The Canadian saying Boise.
What'd you call it?
And I had a man on the airplane from Denver to Boise say it's actually like boy, like BOY, C, SEE. So I was corrected on the airplane on my way to Idaho.
That's great. I don't even know if I'd call it Boise or Boise. I think I'm like you. I'm more Canadian. I think I call it Boise.
I think you are more Canadian than you think.
Yeah, me too.
I know, right?
I just got off a call with Decium, based out of Toronto.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Practically Canadian. There we go.
Yeah.
Adrian, welcome to the show. I'm excited to dive into this one.
So glad to be here. Thank you for that feedback, and have felt the same. Immediate connection, trust. You get around certain people and you know they've got gravitas professionally, right? And people know that with you as soon as they're around you. It's like, oh, she knows what she's doing. But then, there's certain folks that are like very highly competent and then attitudinally blow you out of the water. And that was my experience with you. It's like, oh, wow, she's like here for people, really committed, really connected. So anyway, feeling's been mutual.
Thank you. Received. Yeah. Yes. I appreciate that. Well, I want to do a bit of we're going to start high level and work our way down into more of a rapid fire style question. So people tuning in can get to know you a little bit better.
Got it.
All right, cool. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in Southern Illinois called Salem, Illinois. 8,000 people, surrounded by cornfields, one high school in the whole county. All white people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where do you live now?
Now I live in West Hollywood, California. So right in the heart of Los Angeles. So very different than Salem.
I was gonna say a little bit of a paradigm swing there.
When I'm back home, and it's just the notorious thing is like, oh, you're the LA kid. Sorry about that. That's what Southern Illinoisans say. It's like, oh, wow. It's like, they have a lot of other harsh things to say about California. Now, they've never been, nor would they ever go, but they're pretty certain about how, godforsaken it is.
Of course. Yeah. And isn't that the truth in a lot of ways, right? How certain we can be about things we have not experienced.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
All right. A favorite book, quote, or movie that moved you?
Wow. Favorite book, quote, or movie that moved you? That's like a 4-hour conversation.
I know. We could just have a podcast on that one.
Let's see. A quote that comes to mind, maybe a heavy quote to kick off a podcast with, but one of my favorite poems is one that I read at the end of the Revenant Process by a guy named David White, Whyte. And it's worth looking up, anybody that's listening. David White, and the poem is called Everything is Waiting for You. And it's breathtaking. But there's a line in it that has always, hit me very deeply and called me forward, invited me very deeply. And the line is simply this: put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. It'll make sense if you listen to the whole poem. But that idea, and as we were kind of offline talking about this conversation we're going to have and around the challenges, either big picture for leaders, or especially, I work with a lot of founders. You've been interviewing a lot of founders. You work with a lot of founders. It's that's whole, like, it's a lonely at the top thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even just for me, as I'm sitting with my journal in the morning before the kids woke up, and I'm just sitting there, just kind of getting connected to myself, like what's really in between my ears. And I could just go have a typical Tuesday, or I could like listen to myself just so I can be my best friend today, which is usually my calling to myself. It's like, if I'm waiting for somebody else to be my best friend, there's a gamble over there. But if I can be my best friend, at least as a starting point, and what I need to do is put down the weight of my own aloneness and ease into the conversation. Like there's things I've got going on, things I need, things, help I need. I always joke, but it's always true. I always need much more help than I want. Because I still think I'm going to get extra stars if I pull it off solo. That's not new for me. It's like, oh, I can pull this thing off. I got it. All that kind of thinking. So put down the weight of that aloneness, which I think we're all dying for, and ease into the conversation. There's so much love here waiting for us and help here waiting for us if we're willing to take the vulnerable step of inviting other people into our real world. They're invited into like the couple layers, but like the deeper stuff, So anyway, that's what comes to mind.
Oh, that's powerful. That is deeply powerful and profound. And to your point, how we connect is through opening. And that's been unraveling for me, this constant of chameleon lifestyle, what I think I should be, how I think I should show up versus here I am with all of it. Here I am. Yeah.
And isn't it tough? I mean, it's a paradox. Like it's a tension, I think, to manage, because part of it's necessary, like to live out our persona, like to have a persona, like an ideal self, as Jung would talk about it, like an ideal self, something we want to present to the world. That's actually a good idea. It just kills us if we think that that's the only game in town. And we can't also have how am I really doing and how do I integrate these two things, the public self and the private self? And how do I integrate these? Because most of the despair people live through, and I've got this t-shirt, is like living these two very different lives, like the external looking and the internal feeling. And if I don't integrate them, which takes a lot of courage, then, we're going to have trouble. So anyway, I think.
Oh, you see this quote could be the whole podcast.
It's great.
It's great.
I'm down for it.
I love this. It leads me to the next question, which we're kind of stepping down the ladder here and we're going deeper as we go. And curious question for you. If you could have a conversation with your 18-year-old self, what's one piece of advice you would give him?
With my 18-year-old self. All right. So getting ready to go off to college, getting ready to go play football in college, which was kind of a surprise and a delight that I got to go keep playing. Didn't really know what I wanted to do in my life. Knew I was smart, but didn't know how to apply that and hadn't seen a lot of the world. I would tell myself today, most things don't matter. Most things don't matter. And relationships matter. So go explore, man. Like take the pressure off. College is about exploring. So go, touch all the corners, like go out and see, experience, do, get out of any kind of expectations. 18-year-old self was kind of stepping through, I think as we all are at some level, expectations of parents, expectations of culture. I came from a very deep kind of faith background that had a lot of expectations baked into it, some of which helpful, most of which not helpful. So I had to give myself a lot of room, like, hey, the next 10 years is a big, long experiment. Your job is to go experience as many things as you can. Don't die, but do everything else right up to the edge. And it all works. That's what I tell myself. That's what I tell my 18-year-old, my stepson, 18-year-old stepson, who's getting ready to go off to college, is let it loose, man. Go all in, be crazy, play, throw yourself at everything. And then you'll see, you'll get to know yourself. You don't know yourself when you're 18. The whole, like, what do I want to be when I grow up is such an unfair and unhelpful question for 18-year-olds, because some kids know, I didn't know. And it's an odd amount of pressure instead of like, hey, why don't you go get to know yourself over the next 10 years? And you'll, get closer to mastery when you get into your 30s, and you'll find, just experiment hopefully all in the same direction. But, go experiment, take the pressure off. That's what I tell myself. That's what I tell myself today at 42, by the way.
Same. like, yeah, that's advice. I'm listening. I'm actually soaking it in and allowing it to just marinate there.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think about, like, if that was a true sentiment that was baked into all of the like all of our culture and think about like our schooling system, if that was just a reality of conversation that was at the table, it feels so much more freeing. I felt like I was chasing in my 20s.
Yeah.
Because of these expectations that I felt were placed upon me and the expectations I internally placed upon myself.
Right.
And I
And you were,
chased.
and you were a heavy. I mean, I know you were very successful early.
I was.
Yeah.
And for the gold stars, right? Gosh,
Yeah.
if I could have this title by the time I'm 30, I've made it.
Yeah.
Until you didn't, until at 28, I got the title and a brain tumor in the same week and had a major shift in perspective and a wake-up call.
I didn't know it was the same week. What a killer.
Like 2 days apart.
Jeez.
It was in hindsight, universally, divinely timed.
Sure.
And in the moment, the darkest soul of the night I could experience.
Yeah. I get that. I get that. Wow.
Flipping your identity on its head and saying, okay, does this actually matter?
Yeah. Who am I now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, that quote will stay with me. I'll take that one with me because I'm still thinking about at the 37-year-old version of myself. How do we break that down? And how do we actually take that into what we're doing today?
Yeah.
All right. Last one before we dive into some more conversations. A mentor or somebody in your life who has been profoundly impactful. You can say who it is, or you can just tell a story about a situation that really landed for you.
You know, the first guy that comes to mind, I've had lots of great mentors. And one of which you know really well, Dan Tacchini, who's a business partner of mine now. I could talk about him for hours, and what he means to me. He's my best friend, mentor, business partner. But the first guy that came to mind, probably because you were talking about me being 18, was a guy named Dan Starrett, that I met at this retreat thing. I went to this retreat up in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. And it was on a lake, and it was like a kind of a leadership retreat, like a Christian leadership retreat back then, because I went to that kind of stuff back then. And we were on, I remember where I met him. I was on this ferry, right? There's like one side of the camp, another side of the camp. You get on a boat, it takes you across the lake, pretty cool. And Dan was the first person that I remember that approached me saying, "Who are you?" And I, "Oh, I'm Adrian. I go to Millikan University, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Oh, no, really?" The first person that like really asked, and he knew that I was conflicted, because I was like young, ambitious leader guy, whatever, like that guy. And he had a sense I needed to talk to somebody, and he was darn right about it. And in his words, this might be too weird for some people listening, but in his words, he said, like, God, I remember the quote. It makes me emotional thinking about it. In his words, like, God was doing jumping jacks behind me. That might sound weird to somebody that doesn't come from that worldview, but what a gift to think, okay, as he was looking at me, there was something intuition in him that said, "Hey, notice this kid." And he did. And we had several hours of really deep conversations that week, and which really became a big opening for me to be honest about stuff I hadn't been honest about. Didn't like have a space to be honest about my own struggles and my own wonderings and my own insecurities. And because I was really good at looking good and good at being a leader guy, and was naturally doing that, and was naturally caring for others. That's all good. But, had started early in my life, like kind of not dealing with some personal issues by serving others, like that thing, like, cause you can serve others as a way to like help others. And then can be this mix where I'm serving others in order to avoid myself. And he was the first guy that kind of arrested that and said, "Hey, hold on, you matter, dude. Like, whatever you're struggling with, that matters. And you can focus on everybody else your whole life, and you could be really lonely and really despairing." Now, it took me a long time to get that, to let that really sink in, is like to make sure, I don't know, we talk about it in like very, pop culture language, like, put your own mask on first, now people say, or like fill up your own cup first. And all that's really good. And it's helpful, like indications to making sure, I say it to clients now, that you're your number one asset. Like you got to make sure that you're leading yourself really well before you can lead anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Dan Starrett, he was, I didn't know him that long. I haven't talked to him in probably 20 years, but he made a difference for me just because he noticed me and he
Wow.
respected me and I felt it.
And here you are,
Here I am.
as I acknowledge you, I just went through this experience with you in Boise, and same. You're
Yep.
one of those people who now looks at other people
Yep.
and genuinely sees them.
Yeah.
And gets curious about them.
Yeah.
And holds space in such a loving manner.
Yeah.
And there's no room for bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might as well get after it.
Yeah. As you did for me, right?
Yeah.
You were able to hold up a mirror I didn't see before in a
Mm-hmm.
way where I felt seen, loved, respected,
Yep.
and also broken and unraveled all in the
Yep.
same moment. And
Perfect.
that is a gift that you've brought into my life. So I'm so grateful for that.
Yay.
So we've talked about a couple different things here, and people are probably starting to tune in that this is a different level of conversation we're having today than we typically have. Those 4 questions on average take 2 minutes for every other human to get through all of those. And you're just seeing.
Sorry about
that. No, I love it. It's exactly where we need to be, because we're able to witness your wisdom and the level of depth that you bring to everything you do. And we can go as deep as you want, as high as you want, but how did you get here? How did you go from that Upper Peninsula camp to Adrian in LA, who's working with some of the most profound leaders out there?
I'll try to be brief. I do get feedback a lot that have a lot of words. How did let's see. Let me give like some quick stuff and then you can ask whatever questions you want.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I was a pre-med major in college, figured out early I actually didn't want to go do the whole thing and go walk, and for lots of great reasons. I'm just I start with a person. I don't start with data. Typically I start on the ground, as you've the nature of my work now, as we start, it's hand-to-hand combat. We work up to big objectives. So I started out in college, shifted to a nursing major in college, and I got a 4-year nursing degree, which was great. And I worked at it, left undergrad and moved to the big city of Chicago for a girl that I've been dating, and worked at a children's hospital, which was awesome, and got blessed to get to like work on their resource team, which meant like I was the utility player. And they don't let a lot of people do it, and they definitely don't let a lot of new grads do it. But for whatever reason, not whatever reason, I interview very well, and I got in. And they anyway, I loved it. I loved that work. I didn't really want to be a nurse. At that stage, it was like, oh, get this skill set, because this skill set and this license can take me anywhere around the world. And I'm big on adventure and big on helping people and serving people. So I thought I can go travel the world and go make a difference with people, whatever else I'm doing as well. But nursing is a great way to do it, and a great way to fund it. So I did that for a little bit. I didn't do it very long. I only did it for a couple of years. While I was actually on a trip with a group of 20 people from Chicago in India, somebody had given us a CD. Remember those? A CD with a lecture on it, or a talk on it, from this guy named Erwin McManus. Now, Erwin was he's still here, is a really revolutionary type thinker in the Christian domain, right? So most Christian domain bores the shit out of me and I think is really toxic. But this guy had the music. He gave a talk called The Barbarian Way Out of Civilization, which was essentially pointing out the fact that this Jesus guy in the scriptures was a revolutionary, because they kill revolutionaries like they did. Anyway, Erwin is very pro risk, faith and risk being interlocked. And for me, when I was 24, when I heard that talk, I thought, this might be something sustainable for me, because everything else really bored me. And so long story short, came back from that trip, read every book he wrote, and then came out to LA to visit and get to know the community. So, and then subsequently moved to LA to be an intern at the church called Mosaic. Mosaic It was very ahead of its time. Back then, even they didn't call themselves a church. They were, it was just Mosaic. It wasn't like First Baptist Church of Toronto or whatever. And we were very flat organization, and you got to go do whatever you wanted. It was hyper entrepreneurial, and it was awesome. So I came out and I became an intern, and then got a master's degree in theology and worked there. And my work was to mobilize humans into productive action, essentially building. We were like 3,000 people in the church, which never happens in a big city. Happens in the suburbs, but not in the big city. And my job was to catalyze ways in which our community could go make a difference in the city and then in the world. So that was great. So I was into, and we were early partnered up with Gallup and teaching the Strengths Finder, and we would do our own personality stuff, and we do all this, which church people back then didn't do, but Mosaic was early in those conversations. So like teaching leadership, teaching personal leadership and character development. And then we were very pro action. So making a difference. Like, you want to be connected here, serve here. That's, they're all called volunteer staff, and they weren't like, just members of a church. It's not like this is a club. No. You're here to make a difference. Let's see. I did that for a good while and loved it, and took people all around the world, like dozens and dozens of trips, and having everyday people pack up and go to Malawi, and go to Nicaragua, and go to Pakistan, and go to, I got to infuse my emergency response medical stuff when Haiti happened. I got the phone call. This was like such a fun season of my life. Where it's like, Adrian, what are we going to do? I'm like, I don't know, give me 24 hours. And then we were on the ground with 3 doctors and 3 nurses and a paramedic, and having our own medical clinic at the Sports Centre, I think is what it was called, in Port-au-Prince. So anyway, really fun era of my life, of getting to mobilize people into action, into mission. So I did that for a good while. And then through that, I met a guy named Jesse. Jesse's father's a billionaire. So he was a millionaire just because he was born. And he had his own spiritual transformation process. And I just happened to be the guy that met him and was a mentor and a friend of his. And he wanted to give a lot of money away. So he asked me if I would help him do that, which sounds pretty fun. So I left that role and started a private foundation, not knowing at all what I was doing, except for I had tons of contacts, tons of great people, and I knew how to help people go make a difference. And so I spent a couple of years helping him figure that out, took him around the world, exposing him to all like the crises out there, if it's the water crisis or human trafficking or fill in the blank. And he ended up really falling in love with giving people who have blown it a second chance. So that meant partially because of his own story, right? So, which is awesome, which I'm glad that it worked out that way. So we gave money to gang reduction, nonprofits in LA, notably Homeboy Industries, which is the biggest and the best in the country. We put a cafe for them in City Hall. I ended up finding meeting some nuns and following them into prison. Catholics usually do pretty cool restorative justice stuff, they call it. And followed these nuns into prison, and ended up meeting this batch of lifers. There's about 20 of them at a place called Soledad State Prison up in Central California. And they were hungry. They're going to be there a long while. So after meeting them and realizing like these guys are the shot callers in the prison, they have lots of influence, and they're like the fathers and the grandfathers to all these young kids. And to all your Canadian listeners, yes, I know, Americans, we like to put people behind bars. It doesn't work, does it? But anyway, I met a guy simultaneously, this guy that I aforementioned, Dan Tacchini, who had been doing leadership training work in the public sector and then with corporations for a long time, but on the side had been doing all this gang intervention work. As soon as I met Dan, I knew I needed him. I hired him immediately. And for the next 2 years, we went into prison, and we would do these 3-day deep dive leadership engagement trainings, very similar to the Revenant that we went through, except for all murderers. So stakes are a little higher. And the door's locked. I can't get out if I want to get out. So I learned a lot during that, because Dan you've been around Dan. Dan has a way of seeing and speaking that I've never seen. So as soon as I met Dan, I thought, this guy, he's Mozart with a group of people, and I want to learn.
Agreed.
So the best in the world, in my opinion. He says there's a guy that's better than him, but I don't believe it. And so I immediately wanted to stay really close to him, and did that for a good while and loved it. Set up the organization, hired the people, got the board in place, funded all this stuff, which was awesome. Ended up the vision for that got really focused at this one prison with this same group, which is boring to me. I want to go change the world, especially when we have that much money in the bank. We can change the system. Anyway,
Mhm.
that's what I would have preferred to do. But the guy that gave the money said, no, I wants to focus on this group, which I said, toodaloo, bless you. But I'd gone through all these trainings. I'd gone through the training you went through, the Revenant process. We used to do a 3-day one called the Discovery, and a coach's academy that we now call Intrepid. And I'd
Mhm.
gone through all this stuff just because I love learning. I want to be as effective as possible. And I knew I liked this type of work, which is deep dive engagement, advocating for people. And I was naturally pretty good at it. And I knew if I could be really beautifully dangerous, if I could get some skills in place. So I'd done all that. And so that's how I got out and got into this work. That was about 15 years ago. So I remember exactly where I was when this friend of mine, she said, well, what are you doing now? And I remember saying, oh, I'm coaching. Well, what's that mean? I said, I don't even know. But it's
I
kind of like
wish people
this.
would be more honest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
I
even know.
agree.
It's kind of like this. I don't know. And we had
Yeah.
a great conversation. And anyway, I started coaching people, and it kicked off really quickly.
Yeah.
And I got tons of clients right away. And which is rare for coaches. Most coaches I know they have certifications at the wazoo, but no clients. I was on the other end. I had very little certification, lots of clients. And it just grew over time. So, one-on-one folks back then, mostly my age back then, mostly middle management, and then slowly, became what it is now.
Yeah. What does coaching mean to you now? Like if you were to talk through the lens of multiple years of experience, I know how much
Sure.
transformation you've led these individuals through.
Yeah.
What does coaching mean now?
Well, the core for me, like the core stand, we'd call it, but the core place I'm coming from is what I just call fierce advocacy. And that's what coaching is to me. For most coaches I don't meet many coaches, nor do I want to. There's lots of types of coaching out there. The type of coaching we do is fierce advocacy. So advocacy, which might make sense for folks, like my job is to help people get where they want to go and get the results they want to get, either internally for them, externally for them. Companies hire us now for outcomes, which is great. So it's advocacy,
Mhm.
which I dig, just because that's a big life theme of mine is champion. I used to call it championing people, but it's really advocacy work. But it's fierce, which is stylistic, I guess,
Yeah.
just because that's the way I'm going to hang with people, is that no conversation is too dangerous. And I'm probably going to go find the most dangerous conversation and go right to it. Because
Yeah.
anyway, it opens up everything else. Like if we can hang in that conversation, then we could do anything, and it generates trust. And I'm always listening for what people don't want to talk about, because if they're willing to talk about it, they're going to get a lot more freedom out of that. And I call it the pattern of one,
Mm.
where if there's indications of where someone is inauthentic, and I can define terms, I guess, inauthentic meaning not honest with themselves. I guess they're playing a game. Like there's an external persona and there's an internal one, and they're not being that real with themselves. They're not fully owning the complexity of the conversation. I'm saying a bunch of stuff that might not make sense. Let me know if I need to.
I'm with you. I'm in it.
I know you. I'm just, as you
I-
listen to your listeners, let
yeah.
me know as you think about if I'm losing any listeners here. But like really owning it,
Yeah.
putting language to the unspoken concerns that are going on, and unspoken concerns, unspoken payoffs, they're sneaky payoffs, because
Yeah.
anytime somebody's complaining about something, they act like they're actually complaining. They're not, they're playing a game, especially if
Mm.
it's a chronic complaint. So if anybody's got a chronic complaint, they'll say it's so bad and they'll complain about it. But if it's chronic, like it's not new, then there are payoffs. There are tons of them, but there are definitely payoffs to complaining about it. And most folks don't want to do the math on that because it's convicting, and because I wouldn't look as good in my own eyes that I like to. I wouldn't be as self-flattering and wouldn't have such an ego conversation going on. But I'm listening for folks' complaints, because that's usually where the biggest breakthroughs are going to happen for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people want to talk plans, they want to talk strategies, they want to talk
Right.
next steps and all that stuff. And I get it. And we'll get to all that, but we're going to get to the heart of the matter, which is how human beings are all naturally racketeers. Like, we're bullshitting ourselves and we're bullshitting other people, and we know it. And we don't have language for how to like accept that, because I accept that about myself. I'm a sinner and I'm a saint. Like, I'm a mixed bag. I'm really awesome and I'm full of shit, and I'm really smart and I'm a fool, and blah, blah, blah. Welcome to, I say, that's how life is. So if I could put my arms around that and like be cool, just be with the, I don't know, is of it, like that's happening. Like that's, you know, I talk about leadership as a phenomenon. Like, leadership is just happening in the moment. And if I can buddy up to that, or we call it hugging the cactus. If I can hug that cactus, that, oh yeah, I'm full of it. And I'm not. Like, I'm really, you know, I'm really sincere and it's really true for me. And I'm not. And I'm hiding and I'm scared and I'm vulnerable. But if I can be with the mix of that, then vitality, power, agency, impact on other people, all that goes up. But most of us really don't want to get close to those dark corners in our lives. So a lot of the coaching is around helping people get comfortable with that, so that they can actually engage the undesirable outcomes, and what generates the undesirable outcomes, which is, you know, actions they're taking or not taking, decisions they're making or not making, thinking that's generating those actions and decisions, and really the beliefs that generate the thinking. So for me, coaching isn't, let's get a plan in place. That happens, but that's not the goal, because you could put a great plan in the hands of the person that generated the shitty results before, and the great plan will turn shitty over time, because things mirror those that create them. Does that sound weird? Like, you know,
No, I
like
hear
if there's a certain, you know, let's pick a fun one, or a common one. Common one is I'm not good with conflict, or whatever.
Is this
Like,
something
you know,
a leader comes to you, or is this something you pull out of a leader? Is this what they're saying they're struggling with?
yeah, they might say it that way.
Okay.
They would probably say it that way. It's like, you know,
Okay.
they wouldn't say I'm conflict averse. They would say I'm not good with conflict.
Yeah.
And I would say, yeah, well, it just means the results that you say you're after don't matter that much to you. No, they do. Well, I don't know. There's certain conversations that you don't want to walk into, and you're running the math on it, and you keep avoiding this thing, and you're actually going to betray yourself and betray the people that you're hanging out with or that you're leading, all because you don't want to die. Like, you don't want to, like, you know, give up yourself and look like a fool, or get real and feel vulnerable. Like, you don't want to do all that. And so you're just going to take, you know, live this kind of playing not to lose mentality instead of playing to win. So anyway, so coaching is really around that. It's like getting people connected to the conversations. The training we were talking about, the Revenant, is really helping people examine the conversations that are usually unconsciously governing their lives.
And one of the most profound experience I had, it was both you and Dan said it multiple times, is how can we lead externally if we can't lead within?
Right on.
And that whole mentality of starting here first.
Right
I remember
on.
somebody asked, like, hey, how do I define what I just went through in these 4 days? Because there aren't a lot of, I have yet to find the words to really define the experience and the transformation that happened within.
Me too.
Like, at a cellular level. I don't have the words. And I'm pretty sure, as you said, it's a leadership accelerator. I was like, yeah, I get that. And you know what? To the external world, they'll get that.
Yep.
And in so many ways, it is a leadership accelerator for the internal self. So we continue to take a stand, make choices, be mindful of words and actions in the external world. Yeah.
I just started talking about it that way like 6 months ago, because that's like, I'm with you. I've been doing this 15 years and it's hard to put language to it.
And even when you talk about coaching and your view of advocacy, what I want to pull back, if you're listening in, I really want to be mindful that advocacy doesn't land as cheerleading. And
Right.
if you're listening to this, that this does not mean that, hey, Adrian comes in and coaches me and stands beside me and is my cheerleader.
Right.
Advocacy, through my experience of you, is calling bullshit,
Straight
diving
up.
in,
Yep.
asking really direct questions. I
Yep.
remember my first time meeting you when we had a one-with-one on a call. So one of my first questions I ask leaders is like, well, what do you want to talk about today? And if
Yeah.
they go into their bullshit story, it's like, hey, if you don't have something to say, then why are you wasting my time and yours? Let's move on.
Right on.
So like, if you're not willing to go into that depth, then advocacy does not mean cheerleading. So I just wanted to pull that apart a little bit more so that people could feel the depth of what true advocacy actually feels like and means.
Yeah. And I would say, cheerleading is a part of it. It just doesn't, like celebrate. I mean, everybody I work with, all hard chargers, for the most part, people that are really hard on themselves, because being hard on yourself is a pretty good strategy. Especially if you're going up the ranks, it points out one of these paradoxes we talk about, which is like really high self-improvement. Everybody I work with has a high self-improvement, usually a pretty low self-acceptance, which works, but means that they're really self-critical.
Right.
So for all those that are prone to being self-critical, which most people are, it's good to stop and celebrate. And so that might feel like cheerleading, but that's not, it doesn't do the trick. Like ownership is what does the trick. So I usually warn new clients, before they become a client, like on a first call, I say, if you want encouragement, call your mama. I'm sure she's all into whatever you're doing, not me. I mean, I'm going to really believe in you. Now that's different than what your mama does. I'm really going to believe in you, which is going to require me not to believe you. I'm not taking it. I'm noting the story you're selling me about whatever's happening. And I'm going to ask a lot of very uncomfortable questions about it in order to hopefully generate new levels of truth that I'm willing to accept, and emit some into the surface, new levels of courage that you've been unwilling to step into. So it's cheerleading. Yeah. Just a touch. Mostly advocacy is this, let's turn all the lights on. Like, let's buddy up to current reality. All the stuff we don't want to talk about, let's talk about that. From a hopeful stand, though, that's the difference. There's no gotcha in this, because I got it. Anything I'm talking to anybody else about, I can only see it because I know it. Like I know it from me. Like nobody ever shocks me. Nobody ever offends me. I'm never aghast and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. I've done it all, and I'm aware of it, and I am friends with it. Like my own criminal side, we'd say, like my own, natural proclivity to like want to look good and feel good and be right and be in control, like our survival needs, we call that. So yeah, I'm glad you made that point.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's dive into one example here before we wrap, and really want to talk or touch on one of I call it the founder's dilemma, but it's really the bullshit story that somebody comes to you with that needs to be broken down and worked through. When you have a founder come to you, what is one of the stories you hear thematically, like it comes up often in the founder's kind of story? And like, what's keeping them up at night? And when you actually break down some of these stories, what do you actually see?
Yeah, there's lots.
I know.
Let's see. I mean, one of the let's hit a couple, or at least I'll start with one. Very common is people don't get it.
So
like
a founder
that,
comes to you and say, people don't get it.
People don't get it. These guys, you know what? I've been here since day one. They don't understand the brand. They don't really understand, the blood, sweat, and tears that I've poured out for this brand. These newbies, they've gone out and hired really impressive people that have come from very impressive companies, and they, they're not. Those folks essentially don't buy into the culture that the founder's really propagating. But the complaint from the founder is people don't get it. or they feel looked over, like they're not getting the respect they deserve. That's a big one. One, I'll give a few here. We can pick one. A founder's dilemma for sure is almost always, not always, but they end up, most of their complaints are there because they've already founded it. And so the founding is done. And now for lots of people I work with, they're the CEO. And most founders aren't great CEOs, because if they were, they would have gone and got a CEO job, but they didn't. They went and they had a vision, and they had commitment, and they had passion. So they went and started something, which is not what CEOs do. CEOs go run something.
Agreed.
And so they've got this thing that they've built, and they don't actually, like, when they talk to me, I'll just say, if you could not run this thing, would you like to not run this thing? Would you like to just go out and like be the spokesperson for it and be the, PR person for it and go recruit and go raise money or go do that and not ever be in meetings? Would you like to not run meetings? Yes, I would like to not run meetings. Yes. Okay, good. So CEOs love running meetings. Founders don't. So they end up feeling, though, attention because they have this belief about themselves, sometimes true, that if they're not involved, the company goes sideways. And so they end up like a martyr. They end up being stuck at like doing the thing they actually don't want to do anymore. They're just unwilling to have the conversations, or don't know how to have the conversations that generates effective leadership around them. Because most of them are crazy, like founders, they're crazy people and they're good. We need them to be crazy.
It's why we love them.
That's right. Yeah, they're lunatics, like they're maniacs. And that's not a great lead. Yeah. Well, me too. But that's not a great leadership model. It's like you can't lead out of mania. I mean, the complaints of the people around them are very consistent as well. Like, this person's impulsive, they fly off the handle, they're all over the place, they come up with a new idea every 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Those are very common complaints of the leadership teams around them. And they're in a seat now that they created, not that they earned.
Right.
So they're not like a seasoned CEO. They're a person that was successful at founding this thing, and now they're in the CEO role. And so there's a tension for them at like replacing themselves. A big conversation I know that you have with lots of founders, that I have with lots of founders, that like replacing themselves, a very touchy conversation naturally. Yes. So anyway, these are a lot of the dilemmas people are in.
I know, Adrian, I feel like we need a 2.0, if I could.
We do.
And to just dive into this and do more of a coaching conversation. If you're open to it, I'll put myself on the hot seat, and we can open up a can of worms on this podcast with you coaching me.
That would be fun.
It would be fun. Adrian, where can people find you? Best place for people to hang out, find you, learn more about how to get involved with what you're doing.
Well, you can always, easy place is Instagram, like everybody else, adrian.k on Instagram. Our firm is called Take New Ground. You can go to takenewground.com. We've got a leadership podcast called the Naked Leadership Podcast. So if you're a founder running a company, we talk directly to the issues that founders go through. We don't interview a ton of people. We actually go talk about what's wanted and needed to generate the results you want. So we talk a lot about framework and how you step into, any of these issues around hiring and firing, around conflict, engagement, around how to motivate a team. Anyway, all the stuff that's like actually there on a daily basis that we need fresh lenses so we can see it in a new way, and then we can be in it in a new way. So it's like, anyway, Naked Leadership Podcast, you can go listen there. So those are a few places.
We'll link everything up in the show notes. And if you have a question about the Revenant process, which I just went through a few months ago, I'd be happy to share more. Next one is in Hawaii.
Come
in October.
And get it. End of October. It's awesome.
Get to that one. I mean, I went to Idaho. I loved it. You could go to Hawaii. A little bit of a different. All good. Just a little
brand
different.
New resort. We've got 10 rooms. I just heard yesterday on team meeting, 10 rooms. It's like $200 a night or something. We've got a great deal. A partner of ours has just dumped 180 million into this resort. And it's going to be killer. It's going to be, the last Revenant that you went through was the best I'd seen in a long time. This one we're even going deeper. So it's going to be killer. That's wearerevenant.com.
I'll link that in too.
wearerevenant.com.
Adrian,
Jackie,
cannot
you're
thank
awesome.
you enough. Thank you so
Yes.
much for being here and sharing your wisdom.
I would
Beyond
love it.
grateful.
Can we do it again?
2.0 needs to get on the books.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Appreciate you. All right. Much
Yeah.
love. Cheers.
All right. Bye, friend.